Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we will see how to optimize your FinOps strategy for innovation using AWS CFM tips. Let's start with a brief introduction. I'm Aviram Levy, Tech Evangelist at the CTO office at Zesty. As Tech Evangelist, I'm responsible for product innovation, talking with customers, and contribute to R&D efforts. And I'm happy to host today Judith Lehner from AWS. Judith, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Aviram. Happy to be here. My name is Judith Lehner. I'm a Senior Technical Account Manager from AWS. I'm also part of the CFM focus area, and I'm also leading CFM tips.
Thank you, Judith, for joining us today. And before we start, feel free to ask questions over the chat. We will try to answer them during the session. Now that we are ready to kick off, let's start. During our webinar, we will try to answer this question: how a robust FinOps strategy can lay down the foundation for innovation within your organization. In other words, how to build a FinOps strategy that supports growth and innovative projects. We will start with FinOps challenges in 2024, and we will see how the recent technological changes impact FinOps practitioners. Then we will discuss about how to build an efficient strategy by using AWS CFM tips. And finally, we will discuss about best practices and tools that can make room for innovation in your company. Now, let's dive into the world of FinOps and let's talk about challenges. What is the role of FinOps and why is it crucial for efficiently managing cloud finance? 6-7 years ago, the FinOps term didn't exist in the industry. FinOps was created to optimize cloud resources by bringing together finance, operations, and technology teams. FinOps initiate collaboration in the company by building internal processes and tools that enable an efficient collaboration between departments. In 2024, FinOps framework has become a significant function in many companies. It provides a clear visibility into costs, and it also helps improving IT and cloud budgets. It also increases the efficiency of resource allocation and, of course, improve the ROI of the cloud. By doing so, FinOps teams build the foundation for developing innovation and the adoption of new technologies. And we will see how in a few minutes. Let's talk first about these new technologies and trends. Judith, at AWS, you are at the forefront of innovation. What are the emerging technologies that are impacting FinOps today? And can you please tell us a little bit about major challenges that they raise?
Thanks, Aviram. So we see some interesting trends in 2024, and the first one will be GenAI, of course. So we have new services like Bedrock and Amazon Q, and we see a lot of interest around them. And Bedrock basically is a service that allows you to run LLM models by using API calls, so you don't need to provision anything. And with Amazon Q, you have two types eventually that, the first one is Amazon Q for Business, which is your GenAI assistant. You can use connectors like web crawler and the S3 connector and index your data and then search and ask questions about it, so you can get results much faster. And we also have Q for Developer, which is integrated inside the IDE, and you can use it for code transformation and also, for example, for networking troubleshooting, so that you have many use cases for that. Another interesting trend, which is not a new service, is under containerization. For example, like EKS. So we see a lot of interest in adopting Carpenter, and we just released EKS split cost allocation, which gives you the ability to understand your pod level information. And we see a lot of customers that are interested in understanding their EKS, their pod usage. So this is very interesting. And another interesting trend is the serverless. So we see a big adoption of managed services with serverless option like Aurora Serverless and Elastic Cache, because at the end, it reduces the operational overhead. You don't need to provision anything. You just need to run your queries or run your functions. And the last one is infrastructure as code. So infrastructure as code will help you to reduce mistakes. It will give you faster time to production. So we see a lot of adoption of creating automation with infrastructure as code. So those are the trends that we see, but those trends create challenges at the end. So the first challenge is around skills. So there is new services, new features. You need to learn those services. You need to understand the pricing model. So it's time to scale up your knowledge. Then we have the budget and cost. So you need to learn how to create budgets for those new services, how to monitor them. So you need to do also that kind of task. And we have the experimentation and time. So you have new services, you need time to experiment, to learn what is the best way to use it according to your use case. And at the end, you need the acceptance from management to do all these things and to spend budget on it. And this will bring me to explain why we created CFM Tips. So at the end, we wanted to create one place that you can consume and get your cost optimization recommendations, especially with new services and new features, that you will get all the information that you need fast and in one place. And basically, the CFM Tips is built upon AWS Cloud Financial Management, and it's the technical implementation of Cloud Financial Management. So why we've built CFM Tips and what's the benefits around it? So the first thing, as I said, is centralized knowledge. I have all the cost optimization recommendations in one place. Then we try to build it in a structured approach. We will see later on in the demo how we created every playbook with a structured approach top-down, meaning we will start with the basics, how to identify your usage, and then we will go into more advanced topics like optimize your compute component, optimize your storage component, and we will go deeper into more technical levels. And the last one is having all the knowledge is built by AWS experts, meaning we took our experience from working with experts and we built it inside CFM Tips. So in CFM Tips, we have 4 pillars. We have the culture change, the foundations, visualizations, and service cost optimization playbooks. We will cover now the playbooks, but I will show the 4 pillars in a demo later on. So let's discuss the last pillar, which is the playbooks. And in the playbooks today, we cover more than 40 services, and we are working on adding more. So from month to month, we will add more services. And we also update the existing services with new features. And the idea is to create a playbook per service that will cover all the cost optimization activities that you can do in order to optimize your usage. So now let's go inside the workshop and see how it looks like. Okay, so now let's go over the workshop and you can access this workshop. First one is a cultural change. So in cultural change, we describe all the actions that you need in order to create a more cost-aware culture inside your organization. So we cover a few topics like how to connect, how to create a better partnership between finance and engineering teams, how you can create a more proactive way for cost monitoring, and eventually how you can define KPIs. So we describe everything here. It's based on the well-architected framework best practices. And after the cultural change, we will go into the foundations, which is all the basic guardrails that you need to put in place before you start thinking about cost optimization. So the first things is configure budgets and cost anomaly monitors, because we want to avoid surprises and avoid cost spikes. And after that, it will be a good time to start discussing tagging strategy and also understand trusted advisor recommendations. At the end, we recommend you to enable Compute Optimizer because we will use it later on for right-sizing recommendations. After the foundations, we will reach to the visualizations pillars, which covers all the visibility tools that we have in AWS for cost visibility. So of course, we have the Cost Explorer and data exports, and also the Cloud Intelligent Dashboards, which is based on the cost and usage report and will help you to get deeper visibility into your hourly and resource usage. And finally, we will get into the playbooks pillar. So in the playbooks pillar, you can see the full list of services that we are covering today. And you can see when it was last updated. It's very important to us to be up to date. And on the left side, you can see the different domains that we are covering. So for example, I will go into the database domain, into RDS, and then you can see a full playbook. And every playbook will start with general spend. And then we will go into more advanced topics. So when we go into general spend, we first help you identify your current usage and spend. So we will start with kudos, for example. So we explain which tab and which visual you should go in order to understand your RDS cost. But we also explain how to do that with Cost Explorer, meaning which filters you need to put in place. After that, we will go into more advanced topics. So we will go into identify your waste by identifying idle instances, by using trusted advisor recommendations. And then we will go into more advanced topics with Graviton. So on Graviton, we will describe which versions of engine work with which type of Graviton processor. And we also explain how to see it with Kudos, how to find the opportunities for migrating to Graviton. Same thing with Cost Explorer. And at the end, we will give you some guidance about best practices, how to migrate to Graviton. And you can see we have more topics about right sizing and backups and storage. So we try to cover all the different components of cost that you can optimize. So this is one example of a full playbook. But we also discussed new trends. And in the new trends, we talked about GenAI. So because GenAI is pretty new, we added GenAI 101 to explain about what is generative AI and foundation models and LLMs. But we also explain about the different services that we have today, like Bedrock, and what is a pricing model and when you should use it also. So we explain about the different services that we have today, like Bedrock and SageMaker. Let's go back. Okay. So a few success stories that we can share about CFM tips. So for example, we have a customer that used the CloudWatch playbook and they identify some VPC flow logs and all logs that they kept for a long time, and they deleted them and they managed to save a meaningful amount of usage. We also had a customer that learned from the playbook how to optimize Lambda function with Lambda power tuning. And on RDS, we had a customer that used the playbook and learned that they have old snapshots that are kept forever and can be deleted. So at the end, if I'm summarizing how your journey should look like with CFM tips, so first thing will be start talking about a cost-aware culture, define KPIs in your organization. The second thing is cost visibility. Choose the right tools for you and create visibility inside the organization for AWS usage. Then you will get into cost optimization. So we recommend you to use the top 2 or 3 services that you use and start optimizing them. And at the end, this is something that you need to do continuously. It's not a one-time. So every few weeks or months, you should do this cycle again.
Thank you, Judith, for this really deep dive into CFM tips today. It looks a great initiative, and I must share that even here at Zesty, we used some of these tips to optimize our AWS environment. So it's really, really helpful. And now let's continue and see how FinOps Strategy can make room for innovation. There are 4 main areas where FinOps can play a key role. First, FinOps are involved in strategic decisions regarding innovation and introduction of new technologies. Second, optimizing costs, of course. FinOps can free up budget that can then reinvest it into innovation. Third, FinOps can provide engineers with the necessary tools to optimize cloud resources. And lastly, FinOps can support experimentation of allocating budgets specifically for experimental projects. Now, let's dive deep into details. Let's see first how can FinOps be utilized for making strategic decisions that accelerate innovation. To start, when you build your FinOps strategy, you need to set financial goals, and they have to be aligned with your organization's financial goals. When your FinOps strategy aligns with your company's long-term goals, it becomes much easier to gain the support of the CFO and the senior management. A great example is a company that tries to improve its gross margin. Imagine a SaaS company that today pays $1 for the cloud vendor for every $2 of income. The FinOps department in this company decided to implement very strong strategy to reduce costs and contribute to the company's effort. In parallel, it's essential to align FinOps with broader business objectives. A great example is the adoption of GenAI functionality inside your product, or improving feature or performance of the product to win over competition. Another example is expansion to new markets. Sometimes it requires additional infrastructure implementation. If this infrastructure is not optimized and not budgeted, you might have to sacrifice performance and resilience. To be ready to implement new regions within a few weeks, a plan should be written and the FinOps strategy should be defined even before the business starts expanding. It is also crucial to define the essential metrics and KPIs to measure the success of your FinOps initiatives. For example, cost savings or resource utilization, and of course, budget management, forecast accuracy, operational cost reduction, ROI of cloud spending. And by monitoring these indicators, you enable the company to take data-driven decisions. Now, let's go to the next part, right? Once the strategic decisions are made, FinOps have to constantly monitor and optimize costs to make sure that the budget dedicated to innovation is still sufficient. Sometimes new project or new technology that were not budgeted comes up. Let's say that during Q2, you want to experiment new GenAI model, but it wasn't included in your strategy. How can you make room for these new experiments in the same fiscal year? The solution, of course, is a sprint of cost optimization efforts, and I think that Judith showed it very well, right? First, you should identify cost drivers, right? There are many ways to do it by yourself, and we presented it very clearly with CFM tips, but also looking at your biggest expenses, right? Like compute, storage, networking, or any managed service that you use, and then identifying areas of ways that you can cut. Then, of course, implement cost reduction tactics, right? Eliminate unused resources, right-size your resources, adopt discount plans, right? Makes sense. And later, select cost-effective regions, right? Or use cache mechanisms or CDN services to optimize your costs. Once you have cut down costs, you can redirect the savings to fund new innovation projects. And let's go back to our example. Your new GenAI experiment can be funded by the results of the optimization that you have done. Now, let's see how it looks on a graph. Companies that optimize their EC2 costs and make savings are more likely to adopt other AWS services. At Zesty, we see it clearly with our customers. You can see here the example of two tech companies that use Zesty. And what we see here is that when EC2 savings grew, other AWS services grew significantly as well. These customers reallocated EC2 savings to RDS, Elasticache, and recently we see a lot of customers shifting to Amazon Bedrock. And of course, they were able to do it thanks to the use of cost optimization solutions. there are two types of solutions on the market: insights and automation. Insight solutions provide clear cost and utilization visibility. AWS offers many tools for that, right? Cost Explorer, Kudos, and many more. But if you really want to gain efficiency and time, you need to choose a dedicated solution. With automated solutions that are driven by ML, you can achieve deeper savings, reduce manual work, and free up DevOps and FinOps time. So how are we doing optimization at Zesty? Let's take the example of an AWS customer. Zesty Cloud Optimization Platform collects AWS services metrics. Then it leverages machine learning to provide insights on the one hand and automation on the other end. These two levels of optimization enable cost savings and efficient allocation of cloud resources. Let's have a look at Zesty Insights, which is our visibility and recommendation solution. In this dashboard, a customer can see its AWS spend per service, how much Zesty automation engine saved to them, and to identify waste. Then you can jump to the recommendation screen, which helps you to identify and implement opportunities of savings in your organization. In this screenshot, you can see the potential savings of each recommendation, right? And then you can see how much effort is required. And of course, you can get the exact prescription of how to implement this change. And now, I'll touch shortly on Zesty automation solution. Let's get into a very common example of compute workload that fluctuates as the business needs change. It is very challenging to predict EC2 needs and to allocate discount plans to a dynamic workload. You can try to maximize discount plans, but you can take the risk for pay for commitments that are purchased but not used. This is the waste spend. Or you opt for less discount plans and a large portion of on-demand instances run at premium price. You'll get maximum flexibility, but you can miss significant savings. With Commitment Manager, Zesty applies an optimized blend of savings plans and convertible RIs that adapts automatically to your changing needs. Thanks to machine learning, Commitment Manager maximizes discount plans coverage to 99%. It maximizes savings while minimizing the financial risk with no manual effort. Our second automated solution applies to EBS. The prediction of storage needs is one of the biggest challenges companies have to address. Rapid growth or peaks in data ingestions can lead to insufficient storage capacity. To avoid downtime, companies tend to over-provision storage. On average, companies utilize only 30% of their EBS volumes. That means that around 70% of their EBS payment is there but not used. Zesty Disk automated solution eliminates both over-provisioning and downtime for our customers by auto-scaling EBS volumes in real time. In practice, it looks like that. Our patented technology shrinks and expands EBS volumes in real time based on applications' need. With Zesty Disk, companies pay only for the storage capacity they need, with no manual effort. And of course, the outcomes are very impressive. Here is an example of one of our customers. Within 6 months, they have reduced their monthly provision data from nearly 7 petabytes to 3 petabytes. That means that they reduce their overall provision storage by more than 50% without impacting performance. And they increase their disk utilization from 40% to 80%. Zesty Disk generated significant savings for them, roughly $200K every month. Now, before finishing, let's dive into some additional case studies to show how FinOps optimization encouraged experimentation and freed budget for innovation. Our first example is a crypto company that made a migration to EC2 Graviton. This led them to 25% reduction on compute costs. Zesty Commitment Manager was able to adjust the commitments during and after the migration and to maintain 99% coverage of these complaints. This reduction in compute cost enabled them later to run GenAI experimentation using Amazon Bedrock. The second company was finishing a migration to AWS. During the migration, they adopted Zesty Disk and saved around $2 million a year. This freed up budget for them to run experiments with Amazon Bedrock and to use GenAI foundational models in their product. And my third example today is a SaaS company that migrated their Kubernetes workload to Carpenter. Carpenter is an autoscaler solution for Kubernetes. It allowed them to cut EC2 costs by 30%. After migration, Commitment Manager helped them to adjust commitments, and the result was freeing up a budget for managed databases like RDS and Elasticache, which improved their operational and resiliency. That's all. Thank you all for joining us today, and thanks, Judith, for your participation.
Thanks, Aviram, and thanks, everyone.
I hope you found the tips, best practices, and tools that we shared helpful for accelerating innovation in your company. Now, feel free to ask any additional questions in the chat. We will be answering them live.